difference in our state and who have so much potential to do more. So first, I just want to welcome everyone. There's a lot of faces that I notice, a lot of new faces I hope I get to meet and become friends with and collaborators with. We have an outstanding group of leaders to celebrate tonight. And I'll say, this is one of those, just mentioned to someone, one of the nights that I find most inspiring of the entire year. I'm sure, like many of you, I spend a lot of my time looking at data and understanding challenges and getting deep into the more challenging parts of our state. And to be able to hold up these 7 leaders who are doing something heroic to make our state better is heartwarming, it's uplifting, and it's really innovative. So I just want to thank them in advance. We'll have a chance to see a bit of their work and celebrate what they're doing. But let me start by welcoming some of our some special guests. First in the crowd, we have a number of electeds. I want to say hi to Senator Catherine Blakespear. I want to say a special thank you for coming to Assemblymember Rick Chavez-Zbur. Likewise to Senator Dave Cortese, Assemblymember Bill Esseline, and Assemblymember Mike Fong, Senator Nancy Skinner, Tony Thurmond, State Superintendent of Public Instruction, and Christina Snyder, Tribal Affairs Secretary. Thank you all for coming. I want to acknowledge your important work. Public service is so vital to our state. I know it's difficult and often thankless. We're counting on you. We need you to be able to help navigate our state to a much better place, much more inclusive and equitable. So with that, I want to acknowledge that we have several of our Leadership Awards alumni here. The recipients of our 2022 award didn't have a chance to have a reception and celebration like this. Given the pandemic. So I want to ask them to all stand up, if you might. 2022 recipients, please. Because we also have a number of alumni from other years. I'd like you all to stand up so you'd also get a little appreciation and love. It is just a real gift to have more than 100 alumni of the Leadership Awards program. We have them working together, helping to support the foundation with advice, and we create alumni opportunities to learn and partner with one another. It is a really amazing legion of California leaders, and we're privileged to have them. So, make sure I don't miss anything here. So we're honoring 7 leaders. And they've been chosen from hundreds of nominations, as I mentioned, and they're selected based on a host of criteria, but really important in that is innovation and bringing new approaches to solving problems and helping improve conditions in our state. And another is that they're a point in their work where the sort of the extra resources that we're able to give, but perhaps as important is the prominence and being able to lift up their work, connect them with policymakers. We hope helps them scale their impact to whole new levels. So that is the basic sort of theory of this awards program. I want to send a special thanks out to nominators. I know one sitting right over there. I know that's a lot of work. I suspect you might get a little help from the nominee, but it's a tremendous gift. And to know that there are, say, 395 nominators who didn't actually see awards given, I just want to thank anyone in the room who did make a nomination. Try again. It is a competitive program, but it's such a gift for you to lift up the work of folks that you see as heroes in your work. So I would like to now hand it over to Irvine board member Paulette Brown-Hines. She chairs our awards selection committee. She's also a valued member of Irvine's board since 2018, and she's an all-around wonderful person. So she has over 30 years of experience in media, communications, and community engagement. She's an invaluable California leader and a champion for her community in Riverside. A little round of applause for Paulette.
My other board members are here. Jenna Butler and Sam Medina are here. The other of our board members here. selection committee members also stand? I know they're here as well. Acknowledge them. As Don said, my name is Paulette Brown-Hines, and I am a member of the James Irvine Foundation Board of Directors and Chair of the Leadership Awards Selection Committee. Now, as committee chair, I am especially excited to present the 2023 recipients of the James Irvine Foundation Leadership Awards. This diverse group is tackling some of the biggest issues facing California, including housing and homelessness, tribal sovereignty and family welfare, criminal justice reform and human rights, education, food insecurity, climate change, and economic justice. We will now show brief videos highlighting each recipient and their work. So please hold your applause until each video ends.
There are 160,000 unhoused individuals in the state of California. Over 60,000 of them are in Los Angeles County. I was born and raised here, and having experienced housing insecurity myself really made me passionate about helping to really make an impact throughout the state on our homelessness crisis.
Competition for units.
Brilliant Corners is the community-based operator of the subsidized housing program known as the Flex Pool.
The beauty of the Flex Pool is that it is a flexible pool of capital that does whatever it takes, whether it's the rent that needs to be paid, the building that needs to be maintained, the service support that needs to be created.
We're able to cut checks for landlords immediately. We're able to ensure that rent is always paid on time. Being able to take a unit off the market and start paying rent for it in anticipation of a client being matched to it, that makes the difference in ending somebody's homelessness.
It's been a few years in my apartment that Brilliant Corners helped me to move into. They provided everything that I needed. Furniture, my entire move-in cost, whether it was for employment, for education, food and resources, anything that I didn't have, I could make that phone call and they would help me figure it out.
Each participant has a case manager to provide services to that individual from when they first meet up all the way through them getting housed and staying housed. Additionally, we have a team that is solely dedicated to working with landlords and are really invested in making our clients and landlords have a sustaining relationship so that that individual can call that unit their home for a very long time.
People see me and they don't see what I've been through. I started struggling with addiction. I lost everything. Like, I lost my place, I lost my children, I lost my job. I was going in between different mental hospitals, being homeless, and going to jail. I think the reason why I was stuck in that cycle was because I didn't have housing. Now I've been able to focus on getting an education.
For the tens of thousands of people that have come home in LA County, their journey would have been much longer, much harder, or never would have happened in the first place without Brilliant Corners.
I graduated last June with 2 associate's degrees and honors, which was a big deal for me because I just didn't know that I had it in me. It took a whole army of people pouring into me to allow me to see my potential.
The reality is that there is housing available out there. The real hard part of the work is moving somebody into that home and making sure that they have the support that is needed to sustain and really allow them to thrive.
There are 14 million restaurant workers in the United States. Nearly 2 million, that's 1 in 7, work here in California. These are the absolute lowest paid workers in the state and across the country. They are struggling with the highest rates of sexual harassment and racial inequity of almost any industry. One Fair Wage works to raise wages and working conditions in the service sector and end all sub-minimum wages in the United States.
For so long, this work has been seen as low wage and low skill, when these should be skilled professions that are valued and treated like skilled professions.
One Fair Wage is a national organization. We have about 35,000 workers in California and several hundred restaurant owners committed to increase wages and equity.
Just before we opened the restaurant, I was looking for how to pay our team a living wage, but I didn't really have an understanding of what that actually looks like. I was looking to know how service charge should play a role in take-home pay and what that breakdown should look like across the house. A lot of people said if you don't give front of house a larger percentage of the service charge, you're not going to find talent, and that just didn't sit right.
From the back of the house to the front of the house, there's been very little mobility in our industry. We've done years of research on the implicit bias that goes into managers steering workers into some occupations and the differential in income as a result.
I've been working in restaurants since 2001. I was a sous chef middle manager at a restaurant, and we had an open kitchen, and we were hiring for a cook. The owner chef said, "I don't like any of these applicants. This is a French restaurant, and all these applicants are Mexican, and that just doesn't look good to the customer." I actually left. Within a month after that, I found a new job, which was difficult for me personally because I was in a managerial position there, and I started back at a line cook level.
During the pandemic, restaurant workers started leaving in mass. Employers are responding, raising wages to amounts that previously we haven't seen and that employers in this industry said were never possible before.
There's a lot of fear from small businesses that increasing minimum wage could put them out of business. One Fair Wage has shown me that centering pay, centering equity isn't just functional, but it actually helps us. Our employee retention is really strong. Things like that go a long way for the bottom line.
They established a culture here to include the staff so that we could have some agency in decisions that really affected us. Here, I have felt like kind of a lightness and a freeness and also a strength.
The things we always said were impossible or impractical are suddenly possible and are necessary for these sectors to sustain and thrive. These workers are skilled professionals and deserve to be paid and treated as the skilled professionals that they are.
recognize Sergeant Raman, who founded One Fair Wage to improve pay and working conditions for Californians through advocacy, organizing, and shifting the narrative about the value of work.
California Tribal Families Coalition is ensuring that tribes have a voice in protecting their children and families.
The coalition is made up of 50 member tribes out of 109 federally recognized tribes in California. The more that we're advocating together and unifying that voice, the stronger it is. Over the past 100 years, tribal kids were removed from their tribal communities and placed in boarding schools. The forced removal of Native children into boarding schools was a national policy to assimilate the children enough that they can melt into the mainstream of America. My grandma was taken to boarding school. She was just 5 years old. There's so much generational trauma from those federal and state policies that created broken families.
The Indian Child Welfare Act, or ICWA, was passed by Congress in 1978 to protect against those past wrongs.
California Tribal Families Coalition is ensuring that the protections under the Indian Child Welfare Act are actually being implemented in California. We advocate for policies that serve to protect tribal children and families. We provide training to those policies, and then we will get involved in litigation if we have to in order to enforce those policies. So one of the things as ICWA workers, we're often fighting so hard for our families to get services. And living in rural communities.
CTFC has absolutely transformed our ability to advocate on a state and federal level. They were able to do a lot of listening sessions with us, take those concerns and turn them into legislation. Emma's mom, my sister, she was pregnant at a young age and was struggling with her mental health. The family intervened and made a plan with her mom for Emma to come live with me. She's been with me ever since.
I always am investigating my own family or trying to figure out who I am, because who wouldn't want to know who they are?
It is vital for kids to remain connected to their tribal culture and community. When they don't, they struggle with mental health, they struggle with connection, they struggle in all aspects of their life.
That when we walk into a state courtroom, mom, dad, child, and of course county or agency all have publicly funded legal counsel. The only party in that courtroom that has a right to be there that doesn't have publicly funded legal counsel is the tribe. And that is just
California Tribal Families Coalition has started a program that provides free legal representation to tribes in cases involving their children.
The leadership of the coalition has worked really hard to create infrastructures locally. When you ask for help, you get it, in terms of legislation, in terms of resources, in terms of work. They're very invested in us being successful.
Being able to keep her connected to her tribe, culture, and community has really helped her mental health and her identity. We were able to give her a flower dance.
There's a part of the dance where everyone in the community will come together and they'll sing for you. Just hearing how much I was loved by my own community was a huge turning point for me.
All of the protections that we've been able to put in place for kids and families are now under threat. We feel very passionate about keeping our kids in our communities, not just for their best outcomes, but for our community's best outcomes.
Blair Cruiser and Delia Sharp are advancing tribal sovereignty by unifying tribes to protect their children and families. Congratulations.
Food waste has been recognized as one of the biggest contributors to climate change. You know, when you throw food in a landfill, it emits CO2 and methane. Food waste is increasing, food insecurity is not decreasing, and the goal really is to mitigate climate change and help communities that are facing food insecurity. Here in California, every year, we throw away around 6 million tons of food, while we have 1 in every 5 Californians do not know where their next meal is coming from. I'm originally from Syria, and this whole idea of food recovery was in my house. My mom would not allow my older brother and I to eat before we go and check on the neighbors and make sure they're fed. Coming to the US was eye-opening, seeing cutting-edge technology, saving the world, and at the same time you have people sleeping in tents. So that was an inflection point for me. Replate is essentially a tech nonprofit that delivers surplus food from businesses to communities in need.
After our weekend farmers markets, we always have 5 or 10 gallons of hummus left over. Replate has an app that my managers use. It's almost like an Uber for food pickup. We tell them what we have, and then they pick it all up without any effort from our end.
The majority of our recovered food is actually ready-to-eat food. We're talking about food that is coming from tech campuses, from hospitals, from very high-level events. These businesses can see live their impact metrics. How many pounds of food recovered, how many meals created. They can also see environmental impact metrics, like how much CO2 they diverted from the environment, how much water has been saved.
We probably donate at least 100 pounds of food a week. We made this for one of our clients. It's a 600-person office here in San Francisco. We keep track of our overages, and we also share that with our clients. It helps impact how much food we make and how much waste we may have. This is about the 4th food reallocation company that we've worked with. A lot of others, it's too rigid, or they aren't able to accept all of our leftovers. But Replate is flexible, and we really align with their mission statement.
Replate is really revolutionizing how we do food recovery. Businesses find value both in terms of being able to recover the food that's excess, but also the data that is providing back to them, and are willing to pay for it. That's actually a new business model for solving this problem.
The fact that I have a service that's just willing to solve this problem for me and allow me to focus on bigger things in my business is pretty valuable.
The idea with Replate is systemic change. If we're doing our job right with the cities and with the businesses, the idea is actually to get out of business at some point, because then we're actually doing a good job by reducing the amount of waste.
Please join us in celebrating Mind My Food, founder and chief executive officer of Replate, who is addressing climate change by helping businesses donate surplus food and reduce waste.
Hey, check this out. Everything that you're seeing happening right now comes from incarcerated people. They put in money, they put in drive to actually show that they still care, even though they may not be at home with you.
I've been doing this work for 50 years because I started fighting back when I was a prisoner. The first thing that happens upon arrest is that they tell you that you have the right to remain silent. My job is to teach formerly incarcerated people they have the right to be as noisy as they need to be to secure the fundamental rights that I think human beings is entitled to. We built All of Us Anon to lead a movement of formerly incarcerated people.
We were tired of other people speaking for us.
All of Us Are None and Legal Services for Prisoners with Children is one of the most impactful organizations in the United States. They are responsible for 37 states and 150 cities and counties who have implemented ban the box in employment.
Have you ever been convicted of a crime? And you see that box on the application for employment, for housing, for public benefits. When we started Ban the Box, we was fighting structural discrimination in all aspects of it.
I was 17 when I was arrested. When I was released after serving 30 years in prison, I applied directly for an apartment unit, and on the application it asked me, have you ever been convicted of a felony? And I marked the box yes, not realizing that I screened myself out. I applied for another apartment unit, and 6 months later, they said, unfortunately, anyone who'd been convicted of a felony cannot live on the premises. I already had employment, I already had a vehicle. I just could not live where I was born and raised at.
There is no data that supports what I did 30 years ago has any bearing on whether or not I'm going to be a good tenant today. Fair Chance Housing is building on the success of Ban the Box in employment. We are preventing landlords from considering criminal records at any point in the entire housing application process. We were able to get these policies enacted in the cities of Oakland and Berkeley, and we're currently working on Alameda County.
Thousands of men and women now can be reunited with their families. For me, I went from having to be forced to live in cars out in public to having keys to a one-bedroom apartment and having my name on a lease. And so I became the housing advocate for All of Us or None.
What makes All of Us or None incredibly effective is they invest in the leadership development of their members so that they can have a seat at the public policy decision-making table.
Our practice as a society is revenge as opposed to the practice of rehabilitation. Punishment did not change me. Love did.
Somebody's gonna win today.
Organization, Legal Services for Prisoners with Children. Dorsey Nunn is fighting for dignity, freedom, and opportunities to support recognized prisoners.
That's right.
25% of the school population in the state of California are English learners or emergent bilinguals. Growing up in a multilingual household, it was education that made the difference for me. Project Moving Forward started about 12 years ago to help emergent bilingual students learn English as a second language and to close the achievement gap. We target teachers and give them a new way of teaching that would help empower students to learn English.
Are you ready? Are you set? You bet! All right, so let's get started.
What I really like about this program is the fact that the kids get a lot of hands-on physical practice. We call it TPR, which is total physical response. And that is really big for children, especially in my age group. They're able to talk to each other, practicing holding a conversation. I think that is key in getting kids to learn.
Thank you, friends, for sharing this one. So please sit
If you've
down.
ever been in a classroom where Project Moving Forward is being taught, you will see the students are excited about learning. When you look at what's been out there before Project Moving Forward, we were taught to go over the phonics charts. Then a different time of the day, we talked about vocabulary, but with Project Moving Forward, they made sure that the lessons are designed to be comprehensive and taught at the same time.
If you walked into a Project Moving Forward classroom, the emphasis would be on student talk rather than teacher talk. It's a new kind of approach where the student drives his or her own learning because everybody's at a different point.
Say zip, 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 zip.
The rule of three is rehearse, analyze, produce. Rehearse is vocabulary because that's the pillar of everything. Analyze is the phonics part that is directly connected to the vocabulary they're learning. And the produce is the grammatical part where you're producing sentences, you're reading literacy. You would see the technology there as part of the lesson in a blended approach. We created an animated teacher, Mrs. Panda.
That's the picture you're going to keep it on.
We can use the technology and the streaming as this link between the parent, the school, and the home.
Project Moving Forwards helps me know my children better by learning to speak and read English. It's a one book in actions, pictures. It's like action, E a cat,
Yeah.
B a bat.
Now blend it. Say cat. Good job.
I see great success in this program, not only for my students, but for my own children. My third oldest, well, she's an avid reader. She's in third grade, reading at a fifth grade level, and she consumes books, and I know it has a lot to do with this program.
We've come a long way in technology, in medicine, in every other field, and education needs to do the same thing. It is very clear to me that people think because you may not speak the language, you have a limited brain. Students don't have limits. We're the ones that put the limits on them.
Director of Project Moving Forward is transforming language and literacy education for early childhood English learners. That is another hand for all of our honorees tonight. So inspiring to hear their stories. I would like to remind you all that you can help amplify the great work of these leaders by posting on social media tonight using the hashtag Irvine Awards. One final note before we close the program, nominations for the 2020. So if you know a leader or leadership pair doing innovative work that benefits the people of California, please nominate them. Find out more by going to our website, irvineawards.org. I'd also like to thank Melissa and the team at Capital Impact. All of their work in this. We have a lost phone. I think it's nicer than mine, so I might keep it. iPhone, if you lost your phone, I know how that can be. I want to thank everyone who came tonight. We had over 150 people also virtually attending, so thank you as well. And for those of you who are here in person, we invite you to continue enjoying the food and drinks in the lobby while you mingle. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.